Shalom Aleichem. Welcome to everybody. Welcome back. Hope everyone had a wonderful, wonderful Pesach. I want to learn three consecutive stories, all dealing with the great Hillel, with the great sage Hillel HaZaken. In Masechah Shabbos, on Daf Lamed Aleph, Amud Aleph, 31a. So almost the entire Amud, the entire page of that Gemara is devoted to amazing stories about Hillel HaZaken. Hillel HaZaken, the elder Hillel, the top of the Amud is devoted to three stories that hammer home his patience and his understanding, and obviously a very, very patient person. Most patient people, that midah is usually rooted in great humility and in modesty. And there are three consecutive stories about a person who wants to make Hillel get him upset, and the person fails and is taken by Hillel, and it really is in awe of Hillel's amazing midos and amazing personality. But then the middle of the Amud is three consecutive stories about three different Gerim, three different potential converts that come first in front of Shammai and then in front of Hillel. And they have these awkward claims or these awkward conditions. And they say, we're going to convert on condition that this. And in all three cases, Shammai removes them. Shammai doesn't want to hear any of it, refuses to go through with their conversion or lead their conversion or allow their conversion to take place. And in all three cases, Hillel disagrees with his sparring partner Shammai, and he accepts all three of the potential Gerim. So we're going to go through these stories, and we are right now in the middle of Sfiras HaOmer. This message really, as we get closer to Shavuos, it's a real Shavuos message, and it's really overall just a Torah message and a really beautiful understanding of this Gemara. Tanu Rabbanan. The Gemara tells us that the rabbis taught us in a Braisa Maisa. We have a story. B'nochri echad, with one non-Jew Shabal Lifnei Shammai. This non-Jew comes in front of Shammai, and he says to him, Amar lo, he says to the great rabbi, Kama Toros Yeshlam, how many Torahs do we have? Amar lo, Shammai answers this Nachri, this non-Jew, Shtayim, we have two. Torah Shebichtav, we have the written Torah, we have the Tanakh, the 24 books of the Tanakh, right? Torah, Nevi'im, and Ksuvim. Torah Sheba'al, and we have Torah Sheba'al. We have the oral Torah, we have the tradition, we have the explanations, the oral explanations of all of Torah Shebichtav. So we really have two Torahs. Amar lo, this non-Jew, this goy, this Gentile, as my mother would say, this Gentile says, Shebichtav ani ma'amincha. I believe in the written Torah. V'sheba'al peh eina ma'amincha. I do not, however, believe in the oral Torah. And then he says his request, Giyarani, please convert me. Please convert me to Yadus, to Judaism. Al menas, on condition, shetilamdeni Torah shebichtav, that you teach me only Torah Shebichtav, and I'm only bound by its laws and its rules. I want to be a Torah Shebichtav Jew. I'm going to ignore the Torah Shebaal Peh. What's Shammai's reaction? Ga'arbo v'hotzio b'nezifa. He basically kicks him out, and he's upset at him, and he sends him away upset. Ba'lifnei Hillel. Then he says, I struck out with Shammai. So maybe he was... what's it called when you're looking for a kula, for a leniency, right? The rest rabbi says, no, you're going to go to this rabbi who's going to hopefully give you the answer you want. We shouldn't be doing that. But he bali for Hillel, Giyara, and Hillel converts him. Okay, that can't be the end of the story, right? How can he do it? You're going to only accept Torah Shebichtav? That's completely false. That's anti everything we believe. So much of what we do, so much of, first of all, our understanding of halacha and of Judaism and Yadus is through Torah Shebaal Peh. But sometimes just we have no clue what to do with respect. If we would just have the Torah Shebichtav, we'd be lost very, very often in our performance of midos and understanding what exactly HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants and expects of each and every one of us. So what's the rest of the story? Yoma Kama. One day, Amar Le, Hillel has to go learn Torah with this convert, with this potential ger. And he says, Aleph, this is an Aleph. Beis, this is a Beis. Gimel, this is a Gimel. Daled, this is a Daled. Oh, so it went over. That was Shiur. Aleph, Beis, Gimel, Daled. L'machar, then the next day, what happens when it was Shiur the next day? He had to learn with Hillel the next day. Apechle. He said that was an Aleph. No, that's a Daled. And that was a Beis yesterday, that's a Gimel. And that was a Gimel, that's a Beis, and that's a Daled, this is an Aleph. He switched it, apically, reversed the names of all the letters for him, for this ger. Amar Le, whoa, this guy was a good student, right? Some kids, you teach them on Monday, they don't even know, they forget by Tuesday. This guy was this student was a good student. And he said, etmol lo amart li yachi. Yesterday, Rabbi, Hillel, you didn't teach me that. You said that aleph this is an aleph and this is a base. Now you're saying, this is this aleph that was yesterday an aleph, now it's a daled. You're switching everything on me. What's going on? Etmol lo amart li yachi. Amar lo, Hillel replies and says back, Lav al yudidi, aren't you being somech? Aren't you relying? You're showing that aleph has no inherent meaning. It only is an aleph and makes, let's say, an a sound. Really, an aleph actually makes no sound unless there's a, right? If it's just a plain aleph or a plain ayin, makes no sound. It needs the nekuda. It needs the nikudot, needs the vowels to actually make a sound. But he says, right, just like you were somech on me, just like you relied on me in order to say that's an aleph and that's a bet. So too, just like you are reliant on me for what it says, for what these letters stand for, what these letters are, so too, you know what? Please rely on me also about the truthfulness and the veracity of Torah Sheba'al Peh. Don't just be a Torah Shebechtav Jew, just like you accept Torah Shebechtav, also accept the Torah Sheba'al Peh. So this was Hillel's unique way. This was his insightful way of accepting this potential ger as a convert, not pushing him away, but seeing that he was going to be able to teach this person that really, you know what? Really, he wants to accept the Torah Sheba'al Peh as well. That's story number 1. Here we go. We're going to spend most of our time on story number 3. But story number 2, the story that we're about to hit, is by far and away the most famous. Shuv Ma'aseh B'Nachri Echad Sheba'al Lifnei Shammai. We have another story. Shuv. We have another Ma'aseh, another incident, another story about a certain non-Jew, a certain Nachri that came in front of Shammai. Amar lo, Giarani. I want you to please convert me al menat she'tilamdeni kol haTorah kula. I want you to teach me all of Torah. You could probably finish the sentence, right? I want you to teach me all of the Torah. Kishani omeid al regel achat. While I am standing on one foot, while I'm standing on one leg. So what's Shammai? All of Torah on one leg? All of Shas or 63 Masechtas, right? All the Gemaras, all Rishonim, all of Shulchan Aruch, all the Medrash. How are you going to teach it all? So, he pushes him away. Now, it's very, very important that Shammai was Shammai. The Gemara seems, Chas v'shalom, a person should think he was this old, cantankerous person, and he was pushed people away, and he was angry, and he was just learning. That's not who Shammai was. When the Gemara is telling us that he is just pushing away these potential gerim, there's a depth to him, and there's an understanding that we're not going to spend so much time on. But Shammai wasn't this bad, angry person. Balifnei Hillel. So after he's pushed out by Shammai, Balifnei Hillel, he comes in front of Hillel, and he makes the same request, right? Giarani almenat she'tilamdeni kol haTorah kula k'sha'anim omeid al regel achas. While I'm standing on one foot. What does Hillel do? Giarei, right? He what? He converts him. Amar lo. But before he converts him, he teaches them Torah. Da'alach sani l'chaver, that which is sani l'chaver, that which is hateful to your chaver, to your friend, lo tavid, you shouldn't do, right? That which is hateful to your friend, don't do. Meaning, whatever is hateful to you, don't do to your whatever is hateful to you, you should not do to your friend. Zui kol haTorah kula. That is all of the Torah. Right? Hillel is basically kind of the opposite. It's the same idea, but it's said in the opposite way, focusing on the negative. Rabbi Akiva said that v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha zeh klal gadol b'Torah. That is the klal in the Torah too. V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, to love our friends as we love ourselves. Hillel, who's earlier than Rabbi Akiva, he formulates it in the negative. That which is hateful to your friend, don't do to you. There's a lot of ink that's been spilled on why he formulates it in the negative. I think that Pashat Pshat, the simile, is that for me to love my friend, to me, I love my friend as much as I love myself. Or as the Ramban says, that what does that really mean? That means that I have to be just as happy, just as happy for my friend, let's say when he gets a promotion or he gets when he has a child or when he gets nachis or whatever happens to him, he buys a beautiful house or a beautiful car or whatever it is, that when as happy as he is, I should be for him. Meaning, as happy as I would be if I got the promotion, I should be as happy for him. That's in the positive. That's Rabbi Akiva. V'yahavta l'reacha kamocha. That's the understanding of that's how the Ramban understands it. It might be that Hillel is just being more practical. That's a very, very high level. For me to be as happy for my friend when he gets the promotion as if I would get a promotion. That was when I would get the promotion. That seems to be a very, very lofty goal. But rather, what can I do if I don't like being ignored, if I don't like being made fun of, if I don't like being not invited to something, right? That which is hateful to my friend, I shouldn't do, hateful to me, which I don't like, then how could I possibly do that to other people? And Hillel says that is the root of Zuhi Kol HaTorah Kula. That is the root. That is all of Torah and everything. He says V'idach Perushahi, and the rest is just building blocks on it. The rest is just an explanation or an expansion or an elaboration on this idea of that which is hateful to you, don't do to others. And then he says, which we very, very often ignore, Zil Gemar. Now that you know that, Zil Gemar. Now you have to go learn Torah. Now you have to go learn everything else. All Torah Shabbat, all Torah Shabbat. You can't just stop at V'yahavta l'reacha kamocha. You can't just stop at being a nice person. There's so much more to Yahadus. So we have case number one. I only want to accept Torah Shebichtav, not Torah Shalpeh. Shammai kicks him out. Hillel says, no, come in, sure. And he ultimately teaches him that really you do have an appreciation for Torah Torah Sheba'al Peh as well. And then we also have the second case of teach me all of Torah while I am standing on one foot. Shammai says that's a joke. What are you doing over here? Hillel says no. There is a foundational, a yesodistic idea of Torah where everything emanates from, everything is in elaboration of. And once you learn that, that's called a Torah Kula. But now you have to continue your learning. We are going to focus mostly on this final story. Shuv Ma'aseh b'Nachri Echad. We have another incident involving a non-Jew. Shaya over Achore Beis HaMedrash. That this non-Jew was just happened to be walking by the Beis Medrash. Okay, now the people in the Beis Medrash must have been speaking very, very loudly. Shaya over the Achore Beis HaMedrash. V'shama kol sofer shaya omer ve'ela habegodim asher yasu choshen ve'efod. The case was that there was a sofer, a person who was writing the Sefer Torah. And the halacha is when you write a Sefer Torah, you can't just write it out in your head. Bereishis bara Elokim et hashamayim kavet avicha ve'ahavta l'recha. You have to read every word. Right? You have to read the word and then write the word. So here he was reading the pasuk. What pasuk? He was up to the pasuk in Parashas Tetzaveh. Ve'ela habegadim. These are the begadim. These are the clothings. Asher yasu chosh yasu, that he must make. Right? That you need to make for the Kohen Gadol. Choshen ve'efod. You have to make the breastplate, and the ephod was like the apron of the Kohen Gadol. So the guy hears it. This non-Jew hears the sofer that's writing in the Beis Medrash, and he says to himself, "Halalu l'mi." Who are these? Or sorry, he probably says it. He can't be saying to himself because he doesn't know. He's saying it to, I guess, the people in the Shiur, in the Beis Medrash. Halalu l'mi. Who's getting all these things? He was very into haberdashery. He was very into fine men's clothing. So he says, who are you making these vestments for, these garments for? Amru, they said, this is for the Kohen Gadol. Amar. He says, this is what he says to himself. He thinks to himself, you know what? I can't, I just wear regular, I don't know, I wear Ross, I don't know where I shop, Ross, Marshalls, wherever it is. You know what? I have a great idea. Eilech, I'm going to go to, I guess, the rabbi. I'm going to go to the rabbi and I'm going to be misgayer. I'm going to convert almenas on condition that he makes me, that I am appointed to be a Kohen Gadol. So Bali Fnei Shammai. So he comes in front of Shammai, right? And what's the big problem? Obviously, the big problem is that a non-Jew, a ger, cannot become a Kohen Gadol. Bali Fnei Shammai. He comes in front of Shammai. Amar le ger an almenas shetissimeni Kohen Gadol. Please convert me almenas on condition that I become the Kohen Gadol. Dechafa ba'amas habinyan shebiyado. When he kicks him out, he pushes him out with this amas habinyan, with this like building tool, right? Shammai, the Gemara says elsewhere that he by trade, by profession, was a builder. So he pushes him to the side with this like building ruler or something like that was in his hand. Bali from Hillel, he comes in front of Hillel and he converts him. Third case, Shammai kicks him out. this case of Hillel, Hillel accepts him. Amar lo, the Brisa continues, Amar lo, klum amidi melech el misha yodeh tachsisi malchus, right? We can't, right? A person, if you want to be president, if you want to be the governor, if you want to be the melech, you need to know tachsisei melech. You need to know the rituals, the ceremonies of royalty, of the king. So let me teach you. Lech lemo tachsisei malchus. Go, you have to go and you have to go start learning the tachsisei malchus, the ceremonies. You have to learn the requirements, how to become a Kohen Gadol, right? And then we'll be able to continue on. But I'm gonna convert you. Halach v'kara. He goes. He's learning one time. Kevan shegia, and he gets to the pasuk. The pasuk in Parshas Bamidbar. V'hazar hakarev yumas, and a zar, a stranger, a non-Kohen that comes close to the Mishkan. What? Yumat gets killed. So Amarle. So as Hillel and this potential convert or this convert are talking, he says, Mikrazeh al min emar. Who's this zar? Who's this pasuk talking about? Amarle. Hillel says back to this person, Afilu al Davi melech Yisrael. This pasuk of a zar, that a zar comes into the Mishkan, comes into the Beis HaMikdash. In the pasuk, obviously, it's talking about a Mishkan because it's in the Torah. But that pasuk is even talking about David melech Yisrael, the great King David. That even if he would come into the Mishkan, he would be killed. Nasa also ger kavachor v'atzmo. So the guy's a bright person. He could hold cup. So the ger, right? He says he makes a kal v'chomer, and he says to himself, Uma Yisrael shenikru banim lemakom. If the Jewish people, if Am Yisrael, if Kilal Yisrael, if Knesset Yisrael are called the banim lemakom, if they are called children of Hakadosh Baruch Hu, umitoch ava she'avam karalem b'ni b'chori Yisrael, and because of Hakadosh Baruch Hu's intense infatuation and love for the Jewish people, he calls them b'ni b'chori Yisrael. He calls them my child, my firstborn, and still, nevertheless, about Am Yisrael, who he loves so much, still ksiv aleim, it still says with regards to them, v'azara karev yumat, that a stranger that comes in is going to die. Ger hakal sheba b'maklo v'atimelo. Then what about a mere convert, an outsider who comes to the Jewish people with his makel, with his staff, with tarmilo, his like bag, his luggage. Alachas kama v'kama. He's obviously a stranger. Right? It's not talking about disparagingly about Gerim, but it's almost like an insider and then an outsider that becomes an insider. So the Gemara is so this Ger is saying alachas kama v'kama, that I could never go into, that I could never really be a Kohen, I would have to be a Zar. So he says, and he realizes to himself, right? He realizes to himself. So he's upset. So Bali fnei Shammai, he comes in front of Shammai, Amar lo. Sorry, Klum Roy Ani Lios Kohen Gadol. Could I have ever? He gets upset. He says, "Could I have ever possibly become a Kohen Gadol?" V'alok siba Torah. Doesn't the Torah say Lazar Karev Yumat? He's coming to Shammai. He says, "I learned. Like, I would never been able to be a Kohen Gadol. Why don't you just tell me that? Why did you push me away?" And then he says, "Bali fnei Hillel Amar lo." Right? And then he says, "You know what? Because you understood me." And you gave the time to learn with me. Hillel, the Anav, the humble one. Probably he's called humble here because what was the midah of humility? The midah of humility here was that you let me speak. You didn't feel like that you knew everything and you were going to determine. You waited a little bit. You thought it through a little bit. Why? And what ultimately was the great? Your anivus. You should be blessed on your head. Because through your gentleness, through your anivus, through your guidance and your humility, you brought me tachas kanfei ashchina. You brought me under the wings of the of the holy presence. So we have this last story about the Kohen Gadol, and I want to ask 3 questions. Okay, there are 3 questions that must be asked, and then we're going to answer them pretty easily, pretty quickly, but really, really beautifully. Now, first of all, the Marsha. The Marsha, living in the 1500s, actually just from Rabbi Aaron Lapiansky, heard a beautiful shiur about the Marsha. The Marsha was used to be, now the Marsha is mostly learned on Aggadatas. The Marsha, it used to be one of the go-to Rishonim. He's a very late Rishon, maybe he's even an early Acharon in learning the Gemara. The Chazon Ish wrote a whole letter, actually upset upset at the Bnei Yeshiva that don't spend enough time learning the Marsha. But the Marsha clarifies that really Hillel didn't really convert this person before he realized that he could not become the Kohen Gadol. That's the Marsha. The Marsha, once he realized he couldn't become the Kohen Gadol, then and only then did the Marsha did Hillel convert him, right? Hillel merely accepted him as what we'll call, let's say, a viable candidate for conversion. Why? Because if had Hillel not accepted him as his viable candidate, as his feasible candidate, it would have been also usher for him to teach Torah. Right? There are two isurim that a non-Jew is not allowed to be taught Torah. That's one issur. The Gemara in Sanhedrin tells us you're not allowed to teach Torah to a non-Jew. It's specifically just one-on-one to a non-Jew. A non-Jew also is not allowed to keep Torah. Right? Now, you're obviously allowed to teach a non-Jew Torah if the reason he's doing that, if he's learning, is in order because he's contemplating conversion, right? So too, Rav Shechter, actually, I asked Rav Shechter this question, whether you're allowed to invite someone who's in the process of conversion or seeking or just contemplating it, right? Whether you're allowed to invite them to a Yontif meal or to a Shabbos meal. And Rav Shechter said, no, you're supposed to do that. Rav Asher Weiss also is of the opinion that they should be invited. So you could see what Shabbos is, what a Shabbos table is, what it really is. So the Marsha is explaining that Hillel converted this gentleman, only after he came to realize that he really was ineligible to become the Kohen Gadol. However, Rashi on this page of the Gemara seems to disagree. He implies that really Hillel converted him immediately, even before he understood, even before this person understood that he could not become the Kohen Gadol. So now our questions are really going to be on Rashi. If Rashi is explaining this Gemara that right away he converted him, how could he possibly do? So let's ask our three major questions. Our first question is that seemingly halachically, based on what we know and what you know, you have to have a basic understanding of Judaism, that we know that we never convert people for ulterior motives, right? You're not allowed for fame and fortune. You're not allowed to convert someone for fame and fortune. You're not allowed to convert someone for kavod. So Shammai seemed to be correct in his rejection of this potential convert. It's interesting, the Gemara in Yevamos tells us that in the times of David and Shlomo HaMelech, when the Jews were at the top, when things were going very, very well for Jews, we didn't accept converts. We didn't accept Gerim. Why? Because the Jews were in power, the Jews were doing so well that we couldn't really tease out, we couldn't really know if for sure a person a person who wanted to convert, whether they were doing it for the right reasons or not. The Rav Shlomo Ganzfried in his Sefer Apirion, Rav Shlomo Ganzfried is famous for writing the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. He asks a beautiful question in the beginning of Parashas Yisro. In Parashas Yisro, we know that Yisro converts, right? He wants to join Am Yisrael. So you would think that Gemara about David and Shlomo, that we didn't accept converts at that time in Jewish history, how could we possibly accept converts at this time in Jewish history? Meaning, after Kriyas Yamsuf, the Jews were the top of the world. How could we possibly accept converts? So he answers, that's why the Torah goes out of its way to tell us a couple of times that who was Yisro? Yisro was not only the Choten not only that he wasn't only the father-in-law of Moshe Rabbeinu, but he was a Kohen Midian. He was a respected, authoritative figure. He was a high up on the political chain in his world. So if he wants to convert, he's not converting because he wants to be on the winning team, right? He already is getting a ton of kavod in his life. He doesn't need more. So we knew that Yisro was potentially converting for the right reasons. So here in this case of converting to be a Kohen Gadol seems to be that what's driving this conversion is hardly suitable for really a lasting commitment to Torah. So the first question really is halachically, how could Hillel have done it? It's for ulterior motives. We're so careful. This person wants to, for marriage. That's the one that we're always thinking about. So ulterior motives. That's question number one that we have to answer. How could Hillel convert the person? The second question, I think, is not asked about Hillel, but more so is aimed, is pointed at the potential ger, at the potential convert, at the non-Jew. If a person says, I'll accept a job on condition that I get the corner office, that I don't have to work on Fridays, right? So let's say, so then what happens if I offer you, if I say, okay, the job is yours and you have to work Fridays, or you don't get the corner office, what would I most probably do? I'm done. I'm out. I'm quitting, or I'm not accepting the job. It seems, it's pretty clear that the ger wasn't upset at all, that the ger went through with the conversion, right? The point is, once the ger learned, or once the ger realized that he wasn't going to become a Kohen Gadol, that it was also that he wasn't allowed to become a Kohen Gadol, right? Why did he stick with it? Why did he stay with it? So we have one question so far on Hillel, and then we have another question on the how could Hillel do it? Right? It's Aser. It seems to be anti-halacha. That's the question number one. And then question number two is on the convert himself. Why did he not really retract his commitment towards this gerus, towards his conversion to Judaism, once he realized that his goal could not be realized? And finally, our third question is specifically with respect to the comparison to David HaMelech. Even David HaMelech would not be able to go into the Mishkan. Even David Melech Yisrael, right? So first of all, the Torah Tamim asks an interesting question. The Torah says that there was a king later on. His name is Uzziah in Malachim Bet, or maybe in Divrei Hayam. I forgot where he is mentioned, but he says that he was a king from Yehuda, and he was stricken with leprosy. Oh, that's the connection to this week's parsha, Tazria Metzora. He was stricken with saras, right? With saras, because he wanted to go in and perform the service, the avoda of the Kohanim, and he ultimately got saras, and it was an entire lifetime of saras. He was that was his punishment. So why specifically David HaMelech? Why specifically David HaMelech? Why maybe you could have been Uzziah, or why didn't you say any king? Why does Hillel hit? Now this is, I don't think this is the reason, but Hillel is a descendant of David HaMelech. Okay, so we're going to answer this last question first, and then the answer to this final question of David HaMelech will shed light on our previous two questions. So I think that ultimately David HaMelech came from nothing. Okay, David HaMelech came from actually not nothing, but he came from non-Jewish lineage. He came from Rus, right? And he, even before Rus, came from Moab, right? Moab was an incestuous relationship. Moab is from Me'av. And then down the line, there's Rus. And then Rus, right, as we say at the end of the Megillah, ultimately, it's another Shavuos connection, right, leads to the birth of David HaMelech. So David HaMelech has a lot of skeletons in his closet. David HaMelech doesn't have the yichus that you would want. David HaMelech has a checkered, maybe not necessarily a checkered personal history, but he definitely has a checkered familial history. So what is the message? Why is Hillel saying David HaMelech? He's saying that, you know what? Judaism is not about where you start, and Judaism is not also about your job. Judaism believes in the American dream. Judaism believes in the Jewish dream, right? And ultimately, you could become as great a person as David HaMelech. And David HaMelech wasn't a Kohen. David HaMelech couldn't be the Kohen Gadol. David HaMelech couldn't go into the Mishkan. David HaMelech wasn't even a Levi. He was a regular Yisrael. He wasn't anything. So what this person was saying was, don't get caught down in like titles. Don't get caught down in this. You could even David HaMelech, maybe the greatest in terms of climbing the corporate ladder from his family history so many years ago. He was able to be great. Right? And therefore, once he heard that, that's why David HaMelech, once he heard that, it didn't matter that he couldn't become a Kohen Gadol. It didn't matter that he couldn't, and that's why, that answers question number two. That's why the ger does not retract he does not retract his conversion. He does not retract his gerus, because ultimately, what did Hillel see? Hillel sees the answer to the first question. He doesn't really just want to be a Kohen Gadol. He wants to be awesome. He wants to be important. He wants to make a difference. He wants to be a person that accomplishes and is ambitious and is aspirational. That's what Hillel saw. That's what Hillel saw in this person. It's almost like, right? Would you say, if you ask your kid in second grade, oh, what do you want to be? Oh, I want to be president of the United States. Is the kid's dream going to be shattered if he's not the president of the United States? Is his dream going to be shattered if he's not the center fielder for the Yankees or the Dodgers, or plays point guard for the Lakers? That's not. What is he saying? He wants to be awesome. He wants to be successful. He wants to be great. He wants to be amazing. So when Hillel hears a person that wants to be a Kohen Gadol, he's not saying he wants to be Dafka, a Kohen Gadol. The business card needs to say, David S. Mahler, Kohen Gadol. That's not what he's saying. He's saying that Kohen Gadol means I want to make a difference. I want to matter. I want to be awesome. I want to be influential. I want to be impactful. That's what he's saying. So therefore he says, oh, you know what? This is the best possible candidate. This is not just kosher or not kosher candidate. This is the candidate for conversion that's off the charts, that everyone dreams of, right? And Hillel understood that this guy just wanted to be amazing, and therefore he dafka chose the example of David HaMelech, and therefore, and we're right. How do we know right? Because he doesn't back out of the deal. He doesn't back out of the deal at all. And Hillel recognized that someone of high spiritual ambition is really most worthy of being a ger. And ultimately, we should look at all gerim like that. People that are gerim, they want to join Am Yisrael, right? This person was ultimately like, this convert was like almost like an ideological child of Avram Avinu, right? He bought in, he identified, and Hillel identified with his with all of his passion, with this Jew's passion and his ambition. We know. We'll conclude with this story. I should have put it on the Makoros. But we know there's a famous story in Yuma where Hillel wants so badly to learn Torah, he climbs to the top of the Beis Medrash. He couldn't afford that day. That day, at that time, you had to pay to get into the Beit Midrash every single day, and he didn't have enough coins, enough shekels, kopecks, whatever, pesos, dollars to get in. So he got some food, and then he slept on top of the Beis Medrash, and he was with his ear. He leaned his ear down to hear the shiur that were going on, the learning that was going on. And he risked his life. At the end of the day, the next day, overnight, it was still dark. So that it was supposed to be light out. It was still dark. Why? Because his body was on top on like a sunroof. So when they dug him up, they had to move away snow, and they saw Hillel like lying there almost frozen to death. He risked his life. That was a person that was ambitious, and Hillel saw that in this ger. So we see this beautiful story of the three potential converts and Hillel's response to them. But this final one of how he approaches this ger, he says, "I want to be a Kohen Gadol." How we didn't read it as a Kohen Gadol. He saw much deeper, much more insightful, and ultimately we should learn from Hillel to see beyond people's what they say or what their externals. And we should learn from the ger that we should be spiritually ambitious and spiritually aspirational, especially as we march towards Kabbalah's HaTorah. Have an awesome, awesome week.